welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. So glad to have you join us. It's the last half of February, and I probably won't be cooking for you much for a while because my mind is outside in the garden. It's about 60 degrees and sunny today, but I'm in Georgia, so wherever you are, whatever I tell you, you need to adjust it for your zone. And if you want to find your planting zone, USDA hardiness zone, all you got to do is Google USDA hardiness zone, and then there will be a place to put in your zip code, and you can find out when your last expected frost date is and what zone you're in, and whatever I do can be translated to that. I'm in 7A, and middle of February I've checked and I don't have any more freezing temps expected. That could change, but it's time for me to look into planting several things, because there are many things that you can't just plant in April and assume they're going to do okay, because they're very heat sensitive. So we're going to look today at making seed tapes for planting carrots and radishes, because in Georgia I can plant those now. Where you are, you may not be able to plant them now, so you just need to check. Carrots and radishes do better in cool weather. Excuse me. And I usually have 2 crops a year. I plant one late winter and I plant one late summer, and that way I get the benefit of the cooler temps. Carrots and radishes won't grow in Georgia in the middle of the year, in the middle of the summer. It's just too hot. So why seed tapes? Because I could take these nice little seeds outside and just put them in the ground, and they would grow. But there are several benefits, in my opinion, to seed tapes. One of those benefits is that when you get a little age on you, or if you've had some health issues, mobility can be a problem, and bending over to plant tiny little seeds can become painful. It does for me, and so when I got to the point that I couldn't do just anything I wanted to do just anytime I wanted to do it, I started looking for ways to make working in the garden, which is what I want to do, easier. So here are some radish seeds, and they only need to be planted, oh, let me double check. They need to be planted, it says, about 12 inches apart in a row. So the rows would be 12 inches apart. When I go out to plant radishes, if I don't have seed tapes, it's kind of hard, and carrots are harder, to spread them out so that you don't get clumps of radishes. And I have found that making seed tapes helps with that, and I'll show you how I do it. You can make seed tapes with napkins. You can make them with toilet paper. If you're going to make them with toilet paper, and I have made them with toilet paper, you want to look and get some unscented. And because there's chemicals in that might, I'm not saying it will, but might inhibit your growth. So I don't have any unscented right now, so I'm using a napkin. And this is just a cheap napkin. And I'm splitting it apart because I want this to be very, very thin. And I'm going to cut it down into 4 pieces. I didn't cut that very straight, but it doesn't matter. So here you have about a 12-inch piece, I think. So what I have here is a mixture of cornstarch and water, about half and half. I actually had clear gel, which wants to thicken on me. But you mix up a little bit of cornstarch in water or flour in water. If you use the flour, you want to use plain flour or bread flour. You do not want to use self-rising flour because it has salt in it. So we're making this up just like you used to make paste out of flour and water when you were in school. Okay? And I want my radishes to be about an inch apart. And this is not an inch a row apart. The rows are still going to be 12 inches apart. Or stuck in between rows of other things. That's the beauty of radishes and carrots. They don't take much room and they grow really, really fast. So if I were going to say plant peas, along the side, between the rows of peas, I would stick a row of radishes or carrots. And I would have them on these seed tapes. Now you only want to make these seed tapes a day or so before you're ready to plant, because we're going to get them wet. So, little drop, little drop, little drop, little drop. And I'm probably not exactly an inch apart, but I'm giving them room to grow without crowding each other, because this is radishes. And one seed in each drop. I don't know about you, but I have planted radishes and had them come up. You know, try to spread them out. I have a little shaker. And I would end up having to thin out about half of them. And for me, space is not an issue. So I'd rather spread them out a little bit. And not have to thin so many of them out. I'm going to wet that a little bit so it'll stick together. Set this to the side and let it dry a little bit. But now it has been wet. Your seeds have been wet. They're they're going to sprout pretty soon. Let's do one more and then I'll do carrots for you. So you don't want to do this in, say, December, getting ready to plant in February. You want to do this a day or two before you're ready to put them in the ground. And this is going to save an awful lot of bending. And in my experience, it's going to save an awful lot of radishes, because I won't have to thin this out. The downside, of course, is that unless you get 100% germination, you're going to have some empty spots. But as I say, for me, space is not really an issue. Because I'm going to stick these between other things. Okay. And I didn't get it, but I will tell you this. A little Sharpie with an R on the end will just let me know that these are the radishes, because over here there are going to be carrots. Seeds out of the way. Now I'll do many, many, many more of these, because when I get ready to do the radishes, I'll plant radishes. I plant a few radishes once a week from now until probably the 1st of April. So that I'll have a few radishes all along to have fresh with meals. I don't have a way that I particularly like to preserve radishes. We eat them fresh. And I don't like to have them all come ready at one time. So I do succession planting. So here are some carrots. And you know, if you plant it right and you take a little effort, you can harvest carrots year round except for the very hottest months. They don't like the heat, but you can do some row covers or a cold frame or some kind of season extenders. And if you plant it right, and I'll recommend Elliot Coleman's book, 4-Season Harvest, you can have fresh carrots all winter. Just have to do a little planning and make a little preparation. So these carrot seeds are tiny, tiny, tiny. But I hope my carrots are not. So I want to give them on here enough room to grow. And I'd like to not have 2 or 3 growing in the same spot so that they stunt each other. And once again, you know, we're not going to get 100% germination, but we generally get pretty good. Fred and I talk a lot about most seed package directions say plant 3 or 4 per hole or per hill or per spot, and then thin out 2. They may say plant 1 every inch and then thin out to 1 every 3 inches. And I can understand that. if you want to make sure that you have the maximum and you've had some experience with less than, say, 95% germination, we tend to, except with, say, beans, because then if we have 3 come out of the same spot, it's okay. We tend to plant 1 or 2 per space instead of spreading it out, or instead of planting it close and then thinning. We just have better luck with that, and we end up losing less and using fewer seeds. But I do check the seeds before I plant generally and make sure I'm getting a good germination rate. Okay, so that's carrots, and that doesn't look like mini carrots, and it really isn't, but I'll have about 10 of these. They're moving around. Stuck in different spots of the garden. Put a little bit to make it stick. I'm not real happy with my clear gel here as opposed to regular cornstarch. It's not giving me as good a texture. It wants to get hard. Okay, so there's my carrot seed tape. And in this video, I've just shown you how to make them. In another video, I'll show you how I use them when I'm planting other things. And I plan on planting green peas in just a day or two. And I'm going to use these as space fillers to make full use of the garden bed and to give me a succession of fresh vegetables while I'm waiting for my summer garden to mature and give me some great tomatoes. Oh, one last thing that I want to show you is I will, when I'm done with this, of course mark this with a C, and fold them up. I don't want to fold them yet because they're not dry. Fold them up and I'll put them in a plastic bag. And then when I get ready to plant them, I'll just take them out of the plastic bag, drop them down where I want them, and cover them with about a 1/2 inch to 1/4 to a 1/2 inch of soil, because carrots and radishes don't need an awful lot of soil on top. Thank you for joining us on Debbie's Back Porch. Hope to see you again tomorrow. We may plant some asparagus tomorrow.